Breathing in, I see the frost and the morning sunshine. Breathing out, I smile to the frost and the beautiful sunshine. Good morning, dear friends. Today is October the 25th. We are in the Loving Kindness Temple of the New Hamlet during our last day of our Israelo-Palestinian retreat. I was 16 years old when I became a novice monk. I wanted to be a monk when I was 11 or 12. But it's not easy to become a monk because your father didn't like it, your mother didn't like the idea. So I had to spend 4 years to persuade them. I tried to be very kind, very obedient, very sweet. And finally I was able to got the permission to become a monk. I wanted to be a monk because I believe that the practice of meditation, the practice of Buddhism can bring peace to me, can help me to transform my suffering. And the practice of Buddhism can also help the country. The country was under the French occupation. There was a Vietnamese government, but not having real power. There was a French government that held the entire power in the north, in the center, and in the south. I had learned that in the history of Buddhism in Vietnam, There were times when Buddhism was able to help to defeat the Chinese invasion, because the Chinese came several times and invaded the country. And Buddhism was able to help building the country, unify the people, and chase away the invaders from the north. During the 12th, the 13th century, Buddhism was practiced very deeply in Vietnam. And there was a king who became a Buddhist monk. And all the members of the cabinet took the 5 mindfulness training. So they were a united bloc, and the people also practiced the trainings. They were not divided. They were in a bloc. That is why they were able to defeat the Mongolians. Now the Mongolians were very strong. They even occupied China, and many countries, even in Europe. But they were defeated in Vietnam. And the Chinese came several times, and occupied the country for many, many years. And yet, because we were united, we were able to win our independence. When I was 16, the country was under French occupation. There's a lot of political suppression. There was a lot of social injustice. There's a lot of corruption, because the government used corrupted people in order to rule the villages and so on. So as a young person, I had learned that Buddhism, if it could help in the past, it can help in the present moment. But when I became a novice monk, I found that Buddhism was too old, too old-fashioned. Because it had been a long time, people did not renew Buddhism. So Buddhism was not ready to provide you with the kind of practice, the kind of answer that satisfy your need, your personal need, and your social need. We wanted Buddhism to help in liberating us, in uniting us, and in liberating the country. But the teaching did not say anything about that. The teaching did not give any specific ways in order for us to practice so that we can be united in harmony, so that we can be strong and started a revolution to push the French out and to abolish social injustice. But I still stick to Buddhism. I did not live, because I said that in order for Buddhism to play the role that it had played in the past, you have to help renew Buddhism. I think that is true with Christianity, Judaism, Islam. If you do not renew Christianity, Judaism, Islam, it will not provide you with a concrete practice that can unite you and help abolish social injustice and war. So I stick to Buddhism. I was a kind of revolting monk. But I look very nice. I did not look like a true troublemaker, but in me there is a lot of revolution. I wanted to renew Buddhism. The first thing we do is to publish a newsletter within the Buddhist Institute in order to emit our ideas as how we need, why we need to renew the teaching and the practice of Buddhism, so that Buddhism can give us the kind of answers to our social issues, to our family issues, so our political issues. And at that time we did not have photocopiers. We didn't have even Xerox machine. So we just write down our articles and just one copy. Each student monk wrote his article down, and then we bound it into one copy. And the title of the magazine is The Voice of the Rising Tide. Rising tide. We wanted to be the rising tide. A lot of ambition. And it was passed hand through hands, and everybody in the Buddhist Institute read it. They were very excited because the ideas are new, refreshing, stimulating. Some of our teachers, Dharma teachers, they love it. But some other teachers noticed that we were revolutionaries. We were dangerous. And finally they banned the magazine. Although the magazine was only one copy. They didn't allow us to continue. That was the first act of revolution that we had. We tried other means. Finally, we saw that the institution was so old, so difficult to change. That is why four of us left the institute and leaving behind a letter. A letter very clearly demanding the reformation, the renewal of the way of teaching and practicing. Only four of us left, but many of us still stay, But our living is like a bell of mindfulness. To say that if they don't pay attention to our request, then many other people in the institute will leave. So we left. We did not leave in order to find anything like beautiful ladies or getting a job or things like that. We wanted to go and set up a new community where we can study, teach and practice the way we think that Buddhism should do. And the Institute reacted very strongly. Because if we wanted to go to start a new thing, then we had to seek refuge in a certain temple in the country and persuade the abbot to allow us to try our revolution. So when 3 days after we left, the institute sent letters to all the temples in the country asking them not to harbor us, not to accept us. Very strong, you see. We were very small. We were just 4 young monks. And the institute was powerful. And that is why wherever you go, it was refused entrance. It's very difficult. We monks, we did not have any money. We did only have one sister who lived in the south. So we took refuge in the house of that sister. And finally, friends came and we asked them to build us a small temple in the countryside so that we can begin our practice. So there was a lot of energy, goodwill in us. We was not looking for money, for power, for fame, for beautiful women. We were looking for the kind of Buddhism that can help us to change our society. In Buddhism, we do not have what they call excommunication. But they can do things like that. They write letters to all the temples, asking them not to accept us. But we survive. Five years later, I came back to the institute in victory. Because during that time, I published a number of books about the theme of the actualization of Buddhism, the renewal of Buddhism in the field of economy, in the field of economics, the fields of education, the field of politics, the field of humanity, and so on. We had established a community. We have published many books in one magazine. And after 1 year, the institute began to change. Because they saw that if they did not change, and then the people will abandon the institute and join us. And they began to offer studies of philosophy, of comparative religion, of science, and so on in the Buddhist Institute. Before that, only Buddhism. Our teachers spoke about peace, compassion, non-self, the happiness of living beings. But many of them do not do it. They speak of non-self, but they have a big self. They speak of helping society, but they don't do anything to help society, to help the poor people, the oppressed people. No concrete action, just teaching and talking. While the communists were trying to do something. At that time, there were many young people in Vietnam at my age joining the communists and other political parties, like the Kuomintang. There are dozens of political parties, all try to organize in order to fight the French, to put the French out of the country, and to try to establish social justice and so on, fighting poverty, fighting ignorance, and so on. When you are young, you want to do something for your country. So you selected a party and you join them. There was one time I was tempted to join the Communist Party because I noticed that the monks did not do anything, they just talk. And the communists were trying very hard, and many of them were dying in the battlefield. So you have the respect, and you wanted to join them. They are trying to do what they believe. But because we were lucky enough to have elders who taught us that the voice of the way of violence is not our way. That is why finally we did not join the Communist Party. For me at that time, the greatest temptation was communism. For me, fame, power, beautiful woman was not attractive enough. What was the most attractive is the Communist Party, because they are really fighting, they are organizing. You should know that many of us, people of my age, join these political parties with a very, very beautiful heart. They were determined to do something for their people, their country. And the beginning mind, the beginner's mind was so beautiful, so fresh. But a number of years after they joined the party, they changed. Because each party has its own structure. And each party wants to eliminate other parties. The communists want to liquidate the Kuomintang. And that is why brothers turn against each other. Young communists were trying to kill young Kuomintang. It's a pity that they are brothers, they are of the same country, the same people. They have the same idea of serving the people, and yet the hand will be smeared by the blood of their own brothers. And that is why I did not join the Communist Party. I realized that my path should be the path of non-violence. Violent revolution was not my path. And that is why I was not caught in the machine of war. Operating within a political party, you have to listen to the order of the party. If the parties tell that you cannot do that, you cannot do that. If the party wants you to kill someone, you have to go and kill him, even if he is your brother. And hundreds of thousands of young men like myself have been killed in the battle or liquidated by other political parties. We begin with our beautiful heart, but finally we die because of our own brothers in the same country, of the same people. And that is why I want to warn my friends about the danger of violent revolution. In a violent revolution, you have to obey to the order of the organization, and you have to kill. Sometimes in a family, there are two sons, one joining the communist, one joining the Kuomintang. And if they receive the order to kill the other, they have to kill the other. That is a tragedy. I did not join any political party. I only stood in the middle. I tried to embrace all the parties, whether they are communist or anti-communist. But my life was threatened by both. They have made many attempts to kill me, both the communist and the anti-communist, because I refused to join them. The fact that I am still sitting here alive, that is a miracle. They have thrown a grenade into my room. They had tried to kill me several times, because I had refused to join them, either this side or the other side. The war machine is horrible. If you got into it, you'll be crushed. And you have to crush the life of other people. That is why if I am to talk to you, young people, I urge you not to join violent revolution. That does not mean that you have to sit there and doing nothing. No, you can do a lot, and you can succeed too. The practice of Buddhism can help. If Buddhism is a kind of Buddhism that has been renewed, the practice of Christianity or Islam or Judaism can help also. If that is a kind of renewed Christianity or Islam or Judaism. The practice should be able to help us to be more peaceful, to remove our anger, our suspicion and our fear. Otherwise, we would not be able to do anything. It is the practice that can help us to be together as a group, not suspecting each other, treating each other like brothers. You can only succeed in your revolution if you do that. I have seen many groups very eager to do something. They agree about everything intellectually, but they cannot go on for a long time. They are divided. There's a lot of anger in each of them. That is why they cannot operate as a group, as a sangha. As individuals, they can be very talented people, but when they operate as a group, they are not strong, because each of them have different ideas, different way of doing things. That is why they have not arrived at anything yet. If you are a group of Israelis, and if you don't know the practice, you remain divided. You are weak. You cannot do anything special. And you remain you frustrated. So you need some kind of practice to make you into a real group of brothers and sisters. And I have the conviction that the practice in Plum Village can help you to transform your group into a block. We are not talking about theory. We are not talking about practice. The practice that is effective. If a group of Palestinians get together and practice, they become a block. If there is a harmony, there is a brotherhood, there is a mutual understanding, they will become a wonderful instrument for peace, for independence. But if you remain deeply divided, you cannot go anywhere. This is the hard fact. And in Plum Village, we have suggestions as how you can do it, because we have done it. We talk to you in terms of experiences and not in terms of theory. I know many of you are ready to die for the cause of your people. I know that. To die and to kill what you have done. You know that using a bomb and to die and make many other people die, that's what you can do. They have bombarded your home. They had built a fence separating you from your field. They surrounded you, they do not allow you to go anywhere. And you have seen your brother, your sister, your aunt, your mother killed. You were frustrated, you were overwhelmed by despair. You want to use your life in order to do something. You want to punish them. And you know that you will die with your bomb, but you will create the death of other people, including innocent people and children. You have done that several times. They have done it with their bombers, with the airplanes, with the missiles. You have done it with your small bombs and others. Both sides have tried very hard during the past many years. They were afraid of dying, and you do not want to die. And yet that deepest desire to live and to be free and to be safe, that desire has not been realized. And we continue to punish each other. We cause the fear and the anger in each other. We cause the despair in them, and we cause the despair in us. I tell you that if you know how to be peaceful, if you know how to organize a group that is peaceful, that can go together like a river, even if the group is a small one, you can have peace in your country, in your people. And the action can be entirely non-violent. Suppose 100 of you come to Paris or come to New York and started a fast. You are not ready to do that. You are ready to kill yourself, to sacrifice yourself in ambush, yes, but you are not ready to go for fasting because you need 99 others to join you and to do exactly the same thing with you. You need to be a real group who agree with each other on everything, who do things together as a river. Suppose a group of Palestinians came to New York and organized a fast, and you say that you fast until we get a country for our people. And if needed, we will die here, right in New York, on the steps of the United Nations. Because many of you have died, more than 100, more than 1,000, more than 10,000. Now we need only 100 of you in a non-violent struggle, a new approach. But you are not ready to do that. Are you capable of coming to New York in a group of 100 people and everyone speaking the same kind of language? Everyone is acting the same kind of action. Are you ready to do that? If you have a group of 100 people like that, you will have millions of people supporting you around the world. They will help you to organize the fast on the steps of United Nations. Many doctors will come and take care of you. Many people will bring you mineral water. Many people will sit around you in order to show their support. And then a group of 100 Israelis can organize themselves and come and sit nearby, not protesting against this group, but supporting this group. We want to support them. We want them to have a country of their own. We want our government to stop bombing and occupying. And the Palestinians have to state their position very clearly, because you want the path of non-violent revolution. So you have to renounce to violence. You have to call on your people to stop all acts of violence. Mr. Arafat cannot do that. He's not listened to by his own people. He knows that every time an act of violence is committed, and then the other side will get mad and will retaliate by bombing. The people were so angry, they didn't listen to their leader anymore. You are divided. How can you act effectively for your people, for your country? And that is why the spiritual dimension has to be brought in. You have to restore unity, harmony, brotherhood among yourself. This is very, very crucial for the success of a revolution. Among the 100 of you, there must be 5 or 10 who can articulate your position very well, who can speak English or French fluently, and who will articulate your position very well. You have to call on your own people to stop all violence, all act of violence, otherwise you won't succeed. Now we are stopping all acts of violence. We want peace. We are committed not to use violence again. They do not have any reason to bombard us anymore, to kill us anymore. In the past, they have made the excuse that because we were killing them, that is why they have to come and punish us. But now you see that our people are no longer committed to violence. We have stopped all acts of violence. And we are representing our people here. We want a peaceful solution. We want a country to live in. The United Nations and the world should satisfy our request. We fast until we die. And then the Israelis also practice in the same way. They call on the government to stop all violence against the Palestinians. They call on the United Nations to meet in emergency to discuss, because the life of 200 people are at stake. They may not move during the first 10, 20, 30 days. But when the faster, the people who undergo the fast become weak and weaker, they will take action, I am sure. And you will help us to wake up. You will help the world to wake up. And you force the United Nations and other countries to move in order to do it. You can do it in New York. You can even do it in Paris. You know that we have fasted 100 days. It is possible to fast 100 days and do not die. If you need our experience, we can share to you. Because fasting is an art you have to learn. In order to live long in fasting, you have to do certain things, and you have to refrain from doing certain things. You preserve your energy. You don't say or you don't do anything that will take away your energy. And the practice of mindful deep breathing is very nourishing. And in your body, you don't suffer. No, you don't suffer at all. You don't feel hungry. In Plum Village, everyone knows how to fast. And most of us fast 10 days at least a year. We can fast for a month without having to give up our daily activities. I beg you to live. I don't want you to die. And if you live like that, you can serve your country, you can serve your people. We must use our intelligence. We need a strategy. But the strategy is based on understanding, compassion, non-violence. You don't have to sacrifice much, and you get what you want. You do not fight in terms of politics. And you think that you don't have enough people, enough countries to be behind you and supporting you, you are wrong. There are many countries who are behind you and would like to help you. And the purpose is to have the Security Council, the General Assembly of the United Nations to meet and to decide what to do in order for a country called Palestine could be set up. And many countries are ready to send peaceful troops into the area in order to guarantee the setting up of a territory where you can live peacefully and on your own. The Israelis also, they can act in order to end violence and to reunite people, because the Israelis, they are deeply divided also. Both sides are divided, both sides are having a lot of fear, despair, discrimination, anger, our real enemies. In Plum Village, we remind each other that our real enemies are not human beings. Our real enemies are division, hatred, suspicion, anger, despair. And as we recognize them, as we identify them, we try to transform them, to remove them from us and from them. The teaching and the practice is very clear. If you have the time to sit down and discuss, this is the kind of discussion that will bring you a path of action, of understanding. You know that there are so many people in the world who are ready to support you if you take this kind of action, totally based on non-violence. I think many people in the mass media will come and help you. Many doctors will come and take care of you. Many people will come and join you in the fast for 1 day, for 2 days. And that will make the news, they will wake up the world. If I have these kind of ideas of insight, because I am not occupied by anger, by fear, by suspicion, by despair. I live mindfully. I look deeply into the nature of the suffering in the Middle East. And I had the insight that is translated like into proposals like the People Peace Conference, the People Peace Treaty, and the non-violent action conducted in the form of a fast right in New York City on the steps of the United Nations. You have to prepare. I think you need at least a year. You are not ready as a group. You do not have enough peace in you as an individual. Each of us has to practice a little bit more in order not to be overwhelmed by our anger, our hate. In order for us to work with another person in harmony. And when 100 people like that come together, thinking in the same way, acting in the same way, speaking in the same way, and then you are ready to start. And you do that for your whole country, your whole people, and you do that for all of us who hope that you will have a country to live in. If, for instance, if the United Nations come and make a decision in an emergency, they grant you a territory for your country. If you think that it could be accepted, and then you accept it, don't demand too much. Because if you have a country and then based on that, you can go further. It's like Plum Village. When we first came here, it was very poor. Now it's still poor, but less. We have transformed our stable, the place where the cows and the sheep live, into meditation hall. Everywhere you go, it's muddy. You cannot walk in Plum Village by that time. Full of mud. There was no heating system. There's no toilet. There's nothing. And yet we have accepted the place like that. And 22 years after, it became livable like today. So it should not be too demanding in the beginning. If you have a country, accept it. And then you start from there. To have the whole of Jerusalem or to have half of Jerusalem, that's a matter of time. If you are united as a people, if you are harmonious among you, well, you have more. But if you remain divided, full of anger, you cannot do anything. You cannot do much. The same thing is true with our Israeli friends. If you want to live in peace, if you want your leadership to go in the direction of reconciliation, if you want to help your Palestinian brothers and sisters, you have to do the same. You have to come together as a group with peace, with brotherhood, with harmony. You not become the victim of despair, of frustration. In Plum Village, we offer you the ways of practice that can help you to bring more peace into your body, your feelings, your emotions, your perceptions. Many of you have come late in the retreat. You have not listened to these methods that are very concrete in bringing peace to our body, to our feelings, to our emotions. And this is a very basic practice. If you do not have peace within yourself, you cannot treat your beloved one peacefully. You may get angry at your partner, at your wife, at your husband, at your children. And if you don't have peace with your partner, with your children, how can you have peace in your group? That is why the practice of mindful breathing, total deep relaxation, and other practice that are offered by Plum Village is so crucial. But when you come here, you might not be interested in these things. You are interested in getting the support, so that people will join you in opposing the other side. But that is not what Plum Village can give you. What Plum Village can offer to you is the practice of peace, so that you feel much better in your body, in your feelings, in your emotions, so that you can take better care of your husband, your wife, your children. Peace must be in you, in your family, harmony and love. And so you have an opportunity to create that group of people who symbolize peace, who embody peace, unity, mutual agreement. If you don't have that group, don't talk about peace. How long do you need? How much time do you need to build up such a group? A group of Palestinians. How many days you need in order to build up a group, such a group? For the Israelis, how many days you need in order to build up such a group? With such a group, you can do a lot of things. In Plum Village, we have come from many countries, many kind of backgrounds. The Plum Village community has a lot of nationalities in it. We are not brothers and sisters of the same mother and father. No. Our way of living is so different. And yet when we come here, we learn how to live together as a group. We try to be a brother to other people. We try to be a sister to other people. And learn to cook together, to wash together, to organize together. Not to get angry at each other. And when we got frustrated and angry, we know how to overcome so that we become a Sangha, a community. And that is why we are able to offer many retreats in many countries, hundreds of them, thousands of them. And we operate as a group. We don't need a boss. We don't need one person who gives orders to every other person. We try to make decisions together. And we are not victims of division and discrimination and hatred. That is why we could have helped many people who come to Plum Village. We have gone to many countries to offer retreats for war veterans, for police officers, even for members of the parliament, for doctors, for nurses, for school teachers. Because we have enough harmony, enough brotherhood. Without this, well, you stay and fight each other all day. And that is why the practice of Plum Village is something very concrete. And that is what we can practically offer you. And not a statement or some money to buy some more weapons. No, we cannot afford that. This morning we transmitted the 5 mindfulness trainings for about 24 people. And the 5 trainings help you to reorganize your life. So that you will not continue to be the victim of your anger, of your division, of your hate, of the kind of behavior that will destroy your family as a unit. The first training is how to protect life, our life, and the life of others. The second training is about being generous. To consume less in order to help other people who are much in need. In Plum Village, you always save some money to help hungry children in the third world. The third training is about to practice right sexual conduct, because sexual misbehavior will destroy our family, will make us suffer make our children suffer. There is no sexual relationship without true love and long-term commitment. The fourth mindfulness training is about how to listen to the other person and not get angry. Listen deeply, listen with compassion, and to talk to the other person in such a way that he can get your message. Not shouting, not criticizing, not accusing. This is very important to build a group, to build a sangha, to build a family. And you need to train yourself a little bit in order to do these kind of things. And the fifth training is about consuming. You consume a little bit less, but you consume only the good things. Because by eating, by drinking, you may destroy your body, bring into your body a lot of poisons, toxins. They will affect your mind. You refrain from watching the kind of television that bring violence, hate and fear into your mind. Happiness and peace cannot be possible. So the practice of 5 trainings are very crucial to build up a family, to build up a group that will be an instrument for peace. If you can build up a community of peace without the 5 trainings, I doubt that you can succeed. You might not belong to the Buddhist tradition. And yet, in your own tradition, there are the equivalent of the 5 trainings. In Judaism, in Islam, in Christianity, you have the equivalent of the 5 trainings. You go home and recognize them and put them into the practice. If not, I doubt that you can build a happy family and a harmonious community. I would love to see that you can organize such a group in 6 months. You need to be Superman, Superwoman in order to build such a group in such a short time. A group that can go to New York. A group that can be ready to organize a People Peace Conference and sign a People Peace Treaty. 6 months is... If you don't practice well, you arrive nowhere. If you are really motivated by this desire to serve your people, this is the path. And this I tell you with my heart, not with my mind. It is the only way, the non-violent way. You will win the heart of so many people in the world by acting non-violently. Abandon, renounce violence, and you succeed. Mr. Sharon, Mr. Arafat, they all have that kind of wisdom in them. But they remain a seed. Nobody has tried to water the seed so that that wisdom become important enough to be translated into action. Mr. Arafat has called for his people to refrain from violent action several times. He may be very sincere, and yet his people could not do it because they were so angry, so despair. You see, the other side also. They were so angry, they were so despair. And both sides suffer the same kind of suffering. For me, I see the path quite clearly. If you want to live, if you want to die, live in that way, die in that way, beautifully, with a lot of meaning, and, and surely you'll be successful. To live in order to be successful, to die in order to be successful. Because to live like that is very beautiful, and to die like that is also very beautiful. To die for the cause of compassion, of understanding, of non-violence is very beautiful, and to live for the sake of compassion, of understanding, of non-violence is very beautiful. I am someone who tread on this path. I will never renounce the path of compassion, non-violence. If I were in your situation, I will just do that. I have learned the lesson in my home country. Hundreds of thousands of people like me have died in frustration because they have embraced the path of violence. They had to kill each other as brothers. And I don't want you to do the same. Please learn more about the 5 trainings. They are the basic practice. And with the 5 trainings, you can build up a community of resistance, a community of practice, a community of peace. Your ancestors will support you. God will support you. Allah will support you. Abraham will support you. Muhammad will support you. With this Dhamma talk, and with the sharing that is taking place now by a number of Palestinians and Israelis, we will end our IP retreat. And we hope you can continue when you go home. You know that we are always with you. Shall we take a break and then we come back for the sharing? Let us take a break of half an hour, and when you hear the bell, we'll come back here to listen to the sharing of a few friends from the Middle East. He agreed with me.